Hi guys, and welcome back to a brand new series on the channel. It's Building a Nation, except this time we're actually going to finish the save. I promise. Since it is the first episode of a brand new series, if we can get 1,000 likes on the video, that would be fantastic, because let's face it, I need all the help I can get at this point. It's not really for my ego, it just pushes us up the YouTube algorithm these days, and sometimes you just gotta play the game. Now, like I always like to do at the start of one of these saves, I want to know, particularly for new folks, what club you support, so drop that in the comments. It's always nice to see a good cross-section of what clubs people support across the world. So yeah, drop that in the comments, that'll be awesome. So I suppose a lot of you are wondering what this save is about. Why Polonia Warszawa? Why them? Well, firstly, they won the vote, but they also fitted basically every single possible criteria I could have asked for a save that I've ever wanted. So yeah, we're going to go through that and also the rules, and I'm going to explain to you all about the history of this club, don't worry, or rather past me is. So just very quickly, the rules of a Building a Nation save. It's the same rules basically as when I did this with Midtjylland, but we've got a few extra stuff because of course things are a little bit different this time. So the first step of course is to rebuild the club. As you can see, it's not been a great time for them over the last few years. So the first step for us is to rebuild the side and get back to the top flight of Polish football. The next step after that is to overthrow the rivals we've been in the shadow of for a lot of our existence, and that is of course Legia Warsaw. So we need to overthrow them, and by that I just mean pummeling them at every chance we get. Apologies Legia fans, but that's going to be the moment. That's going to be a big thing in this save. After that, we've got to tackle European football. And bear in mind, we're in the 4th tier, so this is a long way off yet, but that is the overall plan. We've got to tackle European football to try and win trophies with Polonia in Europe. Do better than they've ever done in the past as well. But that's all fairly basic stuff, fairly standard things for a save. What makes Building a Nation different is that we're not just trying to improve this club. The idea is to improve Poland as a whole, and I'm more talking about the league than the national team here. The aim is to improve the Polish league, so the other teams are flourishing and doing well as well, and that's the difficult part. The aim is to be #1 on the UEFA coefficient chart. That's the real challenge of this save, because it's almost impossible to do that by yourself. You need the other club's help with that. So how are we going to affect that? Well, we are going to be loaning obviously as many players as we can to other domestic clubs once we get to that point, as well as selling players on the cheap to those sides. The other rule I've got in place is I'm not allowed to buy players from them. I have to sign foreign players, for the most part anyway. Obviously we can bring through our own players, and we're going to need to, so it's going to put more emphasis on our own youth facilities. If we want good Polish players, we'll have to bring them through ourselves. Thankfully, Poland in the second season, which is implemented in this database, which I've got, there'll be a link in the description to where you can get it. It's got so much detail. The idea in the second season, Poland removes all restrictions on non-EU players, so it's basically a free-for-all at that point, which will make it much not easier, but more susceptible to what we're actually trying to do here. The only exception about me signing players from other clubs would be if that player is rumoured to be leaving Poland entirely. I can then swoop in to keep them in the country, to keep the league strong, basically. So that's one exception to that rule. I probably won't do that very often though, because it'd be hard to keep track of, but I want to make sure that we can try and find a way to keep players in Poland. So that's basically the rules for this save. I'm sure there's some other little tidbits, but we'll talk about that later. I'm sure what you all really want to know now is, how did Polonia Warsaw get into this position? What's the history of this club? Well, it wouldn't be one of my saves without a nice little history segment to try and explain it to you now, would it? So take it away past me. Polonia Warsaw were formed in the autumn of 1911 as a union of two school teams by Wacław Denhow-Czarnocki. Polonia is Latin for Poland. The choice of such a name was a brave decision at the time, since Poland was not an independent country. The club played their first match in November 1911 against strong local rival Korona and lost 4-3. In 1921, Polonia came second in the first ever season of the Polish Football Championship. In 1926, they also finished the season as joint champions. In the late 1930s, they became one of the powerhouses of Polish football, with players such as Jerzy Bulanov, Władysław Stepaniak, Erwin Nic, and Henryk Jaśnicki, all winning caps for the national team. In 1946, Polonia finally won the Polish Championship, with the final match being played at Legia's ground because Polonia's had been destroyed during the war. During the Stalinist period, Polonia's name and colours were changed as the team were now tied to the Polish National Railroad Company. Every Polish club had a sponsor, such as the army, militia, or mining industry. Polonia's management struggled to face the problems that the club came across, which contributed to its eventual relegation to the Polish Second Division. In the 1993 season, after 40 years playing in the lower leagues, Polonia Warsaw were finally promoted back to the First Division. However, they were unable to compete financially and were relegated after one season. They regained their top flight status 1 year later, and in 1998 came second in the league, reaching the semi-finals of the Intertoto Cup the following year. In 2000, they won the Polish Championship for only the second time in their history, adding the League Cup and Super Cup that same year. They were knocked out of the following season's Champions League by Panathinaikos in the final qualifying round, with this being their closest taste to the top table of European football. In 2006, under new ownership, the club had boosted finances and high hopes for the season. Unfortunately, this was not to be, as Polonia were relegated after finishing bottom of the table. In 2008, Polonia merged with Dyskobolia Grodzisk Wielkopolski and took their place in the Polish top division. They finished 4th and reached the 3rd qualifying round of the Europa League. In 2012, a week after buying Polonia's players to move them to Katowice, the new owner, Ireneusz Kroll, acquired the rights to the club name and the emblem for a symbolic 1 zloty and kept the club in its rightful place. With things looking up, in mid-season, everything changed. New owner Kroll turned out to be financially unreliable. Delays in contract payments caused a repeat of the turmoil from the summer, and again, Polonia lost more than half of its first team. Despite efforts from the Association of Polonia's supporters to regain control over the club and to clear the debts, on May 28, 2013, Polonia were denied a licence for the coming season in the Ekstraklasa due to a debt of around 8 million Polish zloty. Thus, the club lost its place in the PZPN. In June 2013, the MCPN confirmed a place in the semi-professional 6th tier for the newly formed Polonia Warsaw, created by Polonia supporters and based off the youth players of MKS Polonia Warszawa, a local youth academy, which was not part of the previously destroyed club. In July 2013, Polonia was moved up to the 5th tier, the lowest professional league. In June 2014, the club won promotion in its first season. A year later, Jerzy Ingel took over the club. Under his guidance, they reclaimed their old emblem and began to return the club to its roots. Polonia have remained in the 4th tier, but the stage is set for them to make their return to the top flight and to make Poland a European powerhouse. So, there you go, a trot through the Museum of Polonia Warszawa. That is how they got to this position. I think I made a slight mistake at the end where I said that they'd been in the 4th tier ever since then. As you can see, they did in fact get up to the 3rd tier and then immediately got relegated again. So we are starting in the 4th tier. That's our starting point. Now, of course, our manager for this save is, of course, Bruno Pontes, better known, of course, as Bruno Bridges. No one else was ever going to win that. An absolute legend of the Stockport County save. He is the manager for for this entire save. I've used suggested badges for the club, which I think was a Continental Pro license. I can't remember exactly which one. And he's got like professional football and national, but as you can tell, no international caps or anything like that. So he is going to have a slight disadvantage in some of his stats based on the managers I normally use for these saves, because they're generally much more well-known players and they've got like tons of international caps. But he's still pretty decent, and I've pushed most of his abilities over to youth development because that's going to be a super important part of this save when the youth conveyor belt starts to come in. You might also notice I'm using a slightly different skin to normal. I'm trying this one out. I like the way it shows up on these menus. I like the extra stuff you can see. However, sometimes in the games, I feel like it's a bit buggy and I'm not so sure if I'm going to stick with this skin or not. So if it suddenly changes back to what I'm used to, then you know why. Just looking quickly at the facilities. So below average, adequate. Average youth recruitment, adequate junior coaching. We've got some alright stuff for the youth stuff. That makes me happy. We also have one quite major benefit, in all honesty, and that is that we are the only professional side in this division. You've got to exclude Legia's second side, because obviously they're professional because they're the second side of Legia. But yeah, all the other sides are semi-professional, so that should really help us, even though we're predicted to come 8th. It's much of a muchness at this level. The one thing I did say to myself, though, was we're not going to play the same shape that we played with Stockport and Fulham, and when I got in, I looked at the players, and would you believe it, they're all pretty much perfect for that system. You just can't write this, can you? But I'm still going to resist from doing that and try to come up with a different style of play. Just looking at the actual first team squad itself, you can see that we've got some fairly standout players, but it drops off fairly fast. And there's a few little great white hopes in here too, but we are definitely missing some players I'm going to have to go and try and sign, basically. So here is probably the best player that we have at the club at the moment. Again, apologies if I'm going to butcher the pronunciations. Polish friends, do of course correct me, but just bear in mind, I am doing my best. I really am trying with these. So this is Christian Piacere, our best striker, basically. He seems to have played for us quite a long time in the past, then did a little bit of time away, and now he's back again and banging them in, frankly. He is the best player that we have at the club. I think he's probably on the most wages as well, but he is 29 years old. He is obviously going to be our starting striker this season. He's a sort of target man type of player, but he is only 5'10". So we're going to have to try and, think of a way to get him into the team. But look at this. Look at this. This is what I mean about the fact that we only really have one viable striker at the moment at the entire club. Something's definitely going to have to be rectified with free transfers and whatnot. Though we do have a little bit of money, but I'll try to just shove it all on wages and just try and bring in as many players as I can, really, on low wages. Other notable players we've got, this is our left back, notable egg as well. This is Grzegorz Wojdegia. Apologies, I'm really trying with these surnames. He looks pretty solid actually. 6'1", 30 years old, so again, not the youngest. It's nice to have this on here as well. You really can see that very usefully. But of course, we've also got other options in the fact that we've also got Piotr Maslanka there as well. So decent options in the left back spot, and the right back slot's looking pretty good as well. We have a lot of strength in certain areas and some real lacking in some others. So for example, we do have a bit of young talent. This is Cezare Sauček, who is pretty good, frankly. You know, he's second best on that right wing spot at the moment, but he is only 19 years old as well, which means he's got a lot of room to improve. He's a decent dribbler, 6 foot tall. There's a lot of things I like about this guy, but as you can see, he's an attacking right winger, and that is an area we're actually pretty strong in, because we've also got Bartosz Wisniewski in that exact same position, frankly, and he's even better. This is where the problems start, basically, because this is our best centre-back, and he's already wanted by other clubs, and I don't know how well we're going to be able to do the hang on to this guy. This is Rafał Zemborowski, who, yeah, he's solid. He's actually pretty solid, right? He's only 6 foot tall, though, which is a bit of a concern, but he's got solid defensive stats, in all honesty. He's a bit no-nonsense, but we obviously play him more of a just standard one. Although I don't like the fact that he has gets forward whenever possible. What a weird trait to have on a centre-back. Little bit disturbing on that one, but this is literally all we have, as you can see. The next one is actually a right back. So yeah, he's going to be playing on the right hand side. So we really are lacking in terms of central defenders at the moment. And that's an area I'm definitely going to have to go and strengthen, because he's also 32 years old. So he's not exactly going to be at the club that long. And he's on quite large wages too, his old Przemysław Szabat. And we do, hopefully, anyway, have some youth players. I've not actually looked at the youth players, because sometimes you get some extra regens generated at the very start of a save. So I've obviously not going to look, because I want to see if we get like another Bruno Bridges type of player. I'm not holding my breath, though. So, for example, in the under-18s, we do have a couple of players who are rated very highly, but he is a real player. So Tomasz Gnipek, so he could be solid, but he is a goalkeeper, and we already have a solid goalkeeper at the moment. In fact, our second best player in this particular situation is also a goalkeeper. So we're fine on goalkeepers, but none of the others look all that much cop. So I guess there's no regens at all. It's a few. I don't know if these are actually regions or not. Is it any of them look any good? Ah, okay, we found one. Okay, so we've got Janusz Zaborowski, who's sort of just fine, but again, he's a right-sided winger. Left-sided winger here in Kamil Smolin. We do have another striker here, at least. The third best striker, if you like, at the club, Sebastian Mroz. Yeah, I don't know. You can see that there's a lot of things we're going to have to do to strengthen this team. But that's fine. It gives us something to work with. I've got the summer. We've got some money, hopefully, to try and sign some of these guys. Hopefully try to keep them on relatively low contracts to keep the wages down, particularly as a professional side. But we will have that advantage, I feel like. And the other quick thing to mention, a lot of you that watch the end of Stockport already know this, is that I've changed some of the way that I present off-camera games now. So I will be talking about them in the same way, but you'll actually be able to see the 3D highlights of the games I'm talking about while I'm talking about them, just to add that level of immersion as well. So look forward to that one too. And the light is fixed. Yeah, I definitely wasn't an idiot about that. So, next episode, as obviously I'm going to be doing the transfer stuff, I'm going to be trying to find some players to hopefully strengthen it and trying to work out a tactic, because I genuinely don't know how we're going to play. I even thought about maybe going strikerless, in all honesty, and just trying something completely bizarre, because why not, really? If I can get it to work, I can get it to work. But we're going to be coming back, of course, for the first game of the season here against Sokal Ostroda, who I have no idea about any of these teams, quite frankly. If anyone does know, feel free to let me know about our opponents as well. I think the cups are, of course, on as well, but we haven't been drawn into that anytime soon. So, yeah, the winner of this league is the one that gets promoted, so we're really going to have to try and do our best, basically. And I think with the right signings and the right tactics, we can definitely have a crack at it in the first season. Now, of course, for those of you that don't know, there will be discussion forums and that obviously in the comments, but also on the Discord. We've got several channels specifically dedicated to this save. One for spoilers, one for discussion, and one for player rumours. You know we love a good player rumour. I think it really helps build the story, so feel free to get those in now if you want to, or want to wait for the second episode to get some more of the players coming in, because there's going to be some of them, believe me. So, if you are looking forward to this save, and I really hope you guys are, drop a like on the video. That would be fantastic, if you haven't already, of course. And if you're new to the channel and this is the first video of mine, firstly, welcome and thank you for watching the video. And yeah, feel free to subscribe. It's going to be every single day at 6 o'clock for, well, the foreseeable future, in all honesty. And I'm very much looking forward to getting stuck in and building something bloody marvellous. That's the hope anyway. And I'll see you guys in the next episode when things really do get going. I'll see you guys soon. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.